this is really cool right here. This is History Photograph. This is one of the Instagram pages that I follow. And this says a small amount of perspective at this moment. This is interesting right here. There's some pictures. Um, I think about child labor. I'm sure that's what they're showing here in these two pictures here. But they're going to break it down. Let me see. Is it on the slides? No, it's not
One
on the
of
slides.
like a couple of pictures back, like two pictures back, it kind of remind me of like the what's those young kids back in the day, Buckwheat and them.
Yeah. So that was that same time period. Yeah. Let me read this. It says, for a small amount of perspective at this moment, oh snap. Imagine you were born in 1900. When you were 14, World War One starts and ends on your 18th birthday with 22 million people killed. Later in the year, a Spanish flu epidemic hits the planet and runs until you are 20. 50 million people die from it in those 2 years. Yes, 50 million. When you're 29, the Great Depression begins. Unemployment hits 25%. Global GDP drops 27%. That runs until you are 33. The country nearly collapses along with the world economy. When you turn 39, World War II starts. You aren't even over the hill yet. When you're 41, the United States is fully pulled into World War II. Between your 39th and 45th birthday, 75 million people perish in the war, and the Holocaust kills 6 million. At 52, the Korean War starts and 5 million perish. At 64, the Vietnam War begins, and it doesn't end for many years. 4 million people die in that conflict. Approaching your 62nd birthday, you have the Cuban Missile Crisis, a tipping point in the Cold War. Life on our planet as we know it could well have ended. Greater leaders prevented that from happening. As you turn 75, the Vietnam War finally ends. Think of everyone on the planet born in 1900. How do you survive all of that? A kid in 1985 didn't think their 85-year-old grandparent understood how hard school was, yet these grandparents and now great grandparents survived through everything listed above. Perspective is an amazing art. In 2022, as 22 ends, let's try to keep things in perspective. Let's be smart, help each other out, and we will get through all of this. In the history of the world, there has never been a storm that lasted. This too shall pass. So it's interesting to me because I think about us as like millennials or Generation X,
Yeah, you're a millennial, right? I'm X.
but all the stuff that we saw that we went through, the creation of the civil rights era, well, that was before us, but still, it was kind of like rolling into the 70s a bit. The
Hmm.
you got you had the creation of the internet, the explosion of television. You know you had pandemics. You had freaking global crisis like economic crisis, the
Well,
the
you know
housing
that.
crash.
Well, I guess it wasn't really pandemic. I mean, it was supposed to be somewhat, but I guess they were still more like epidemics, I guess. But when they came through with H1N1, bird flu,
Yeah,
Zika, all those things were supposed to kill us.
Ebola.
Huh?
Ebola.
Ebola, like all these different things that came about was supposed to kill us, but um,
Oh,
and
remember the .com, the 1999 to 2000, the whole
no,
uh
oh well, yeah, 99, yeah, that period,
the
but
the 2012.
that's the one that I thought was more significant. Um, the but yeah, I mean, especially like growing up when we hear the song party like it's 1999. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody thought that, hey, this is something that's gonna we got to look out for, but it came and went. But I think that that's one of those things that you know, just like there had to be something going on during the times when my grandparents, great grandparents were coming about that were the thing. Because like it seems like every decade there's some big thing that we're supposed to be afraid of, and that's gonna come and change everything. And we never really see the big deal, the big thing. We always leave with it being like, oh, that's it. And but not that the changes don't happen, but their benchmarks are way too I guess I identify an era in time. But because I mean you got to think about it. I mean in 100 years ago, 100 in 1919 is when the flu came about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know what time was it when the polio and all this stuff came about.
That was
Uh,
the 50s,
was it
50s
the
and
fifth?
60s.
Okay, so smallpox and
So I like to say
rubella.
that we live in interesting times.
Yeah.
Some of the most interesting times. And I feel like the world is changing. And so, but looking at this kind of puts it in perspective. Like they said, those people were going through some super major changes then too. So we like to feel like we're special, or we're like going through the worst of the worst, or whatever the hell. But then we forget about what the previous generations went through. It says, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create hard times. Take a guess where we are at. Hmm. Another one, it says, powerful message and all the respect in the world to those who survived all that. But it is very Eurocentric American view on history. Many countries have suffered both before and after that in different ways. Many of these events have not affected them either.
A1. I mean, we got people suffering right now that's been going through war for the last since we were kids. Shit, look at Israel. How long Israel been Palestine? That's one. I
Yep.
mean, the shoot all in South Central America.
Yep.
Like I said, bro. I mean, yeah, that's one way to look at
Yemen.
it. Who?
Yemen. I mean, there's a long list.
Oh, Yemen.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, shit. Right now, Libya. I mean, the place that was the most organized place on the planet, from as far as I could see, based on how the government took care of its people. You know what I'm saying? Like healthcare. Like I mean, they got stipends. Like they were actually taken care of, very well taken care of. The Libyan people were happy people until they killed
It,
Gaddafi.
yep. And it's a mess over there to this day. And I'm sure they knew that was going to be the result, but they don't care about the actual people. They
No,
pretend that like they came in there
but
to get rid of Gaddafi because he was mistreating his people. Well, the
no,
people are suffering like a
Gaddafi.
mug. Like a,
You said Gaddafi was mistreating his people. No, that was propaganda.
I know. That's what I'm saying. That's what they were saying.
Okay, I would say but that's what the global governing system is like. You know what I'm saying? If you know they don't want peace, you're not gonna have peace with those people in control, because this is the same part of those people are the ones that believe that you know they are supposed to be the leaders of everything and the rulers
And
over
have a
everybody,
chance at a
and
good life. And everybody
everybody
else
is
supposed to
goyim.
suffer.
Everybody else is goyim. Y'all are supposed to serve them until
And
you
that's it.
know.
And any countries that upset that order, they're going to come in and rearrange things.
Well, I mean, unless something happens to them, but
Let me read another one. It says, my grandma was born in 1900. She never spoke about any of these events. I often wish she had. A reply to that one, it says, same. My grandfather invented satellite systems for World War II. Such incredibly important work, but would never speak about it. He would only speak about the satellites him and his team created to broadcast color TV. Another comment. This is a reply again. It says, oftentimes people will black out traumatic periods of their life because remembering them and talking about them is too hard. We have to probe our ancestors, man, and get as
which
much as we can out of them because they are walking knowledge, man. Going through the stuff that they went through, actually seeing it, because the history books lie. But you could talk to some old person who was alive and just ask them what the hell was really going on. I'm sure if you can probe them enough, they'll tell you. You'll get way better information than whatever you're getting out of the history books.
well, I tried um talking to my dad, which I mean, he talks about a little bit of stuff that he feels like okay, he feels okay talking about, but he was in Vietnam War, um, but his aunt, she's the only one left of the generation. She's like the youngest sister of my grandmother, my dad's mom, and my auntie is 80 some, I forget, 90 something. She might be closer to 90 now. Um, but either way, it's when you try to find out some of these information, you don't want to be like you know like some hardcore investigator. Like you're trying to have genuine conversation, and you have questions, things. Hopefully they kind of just open up and just start telling you things. And I think she has a little bit, but that's I was like, man, I always try to get this information from my dad, and I wish I was living when my grandmother was alive, but I was alive when my mom's mom was alive, but I wasn't in the mindset thinking or knowing how important all of that time was.
Yep, I
You
wish
know,
I could. They be talking about who would you go back and talk to if you could go back in history, and my grandma is one of the ones that's high on my
my
list.
I would love to talk with my grandmother, but my great grandmother, that's who my mom's grandmother is. I feel like just like some of the things that I felt when I was around her, I feel like she would be the one to really, cause she was born in the 90s, the mid to late 1890s. So she saw the turn of the century. You know what I'm saying? She saw when the 19th. She was you know a young girl still. Cause let's see, my grandmother was born in 1920. Um, so, but she got married at like 15 or something like that. Some say 14, but the records show she got married at was it 16 or 17. But either way, um, I know she was a farmer. She was she married my grandfather that was 20 years older than her, or maybe older.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? So it's a lot of stuff there just to kind of get her perspective of what was going on at that time.
Let me read this one. It says, and with all this in mind, imagine being born a Negro in 1900 and having to endure all of this. Plus, public lynching, segregation, civil rights movement, the model minority campaign, getting hosed and bit by the police and their dogs, Watts riot, Tulsa, Oklahoma, watching the American government dismantle black families, the war on drugs, redlining, etc. Just went through. Let me read some of this. It says